If you're curious about a book that gives voice to someone who was silenced and someone who confronted injustice that even to this day still haunts us, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I am reviewing Liliana's Invincible Summer by Cristina Rivera Garza. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're looking at the book that won the Pulitzer Prize for autobiography slash memoir. I have mixed feelings about this category. I have mixed feelings about autobiographies as a whole, but I found this particular book to be very compelling for a lot of different reasons. I felt the subject matter was something that definitely needs some attention, and I definitely was absolutely drawn in by the way that the author wrote. She actually, I believe Spanish is her first language. At the very least, she speaks it fluently. She went to some of her education in Mexico, but her English is also just so poetic. I would love to have heard her read some of this. I'm sure I could go find some YouTube clips of her. I can only imagine. Just the poetic nature is so appealing about this. I will say that that is easily this book's strongest suit. Just to give you a synopsis of Liliana's Invincible Summer, in it, Cristina Rivera Garza, the author, tells the moving story of Liliana Rivera Garza, her sister, who she has a very strong connection to. Although I was a little confused at times, she also talks about some other characters that play really important roles in this book that are not necessarily blood related, but she appears to use similar language. So that is certainly part of this book, is this deep connection with people. And from the very beginning, she tells you that the reason for writing this book was to address the tragic murder of her sister by an ex-boyfriend back on July 16th, 1990. So it's been nearly 30 years, and this devastating loss has lingered with her ever since then. And the fact that it is unresolved, the murderer got away, and that seems to have really just been part of the fact that they could never get any closure. So on October 18th, 2019, which is when this book starts, Cristina travels to Mexico City, and she is determined to retrieve her sister's long-ignored criminal files from the Attorney General's office. Of course, this is now 30 years old. It's considered over and done with. According to the Mexican government, they have little desire to keep litigating this or dealing with this. And so she is going to find this to be much more than just requesting files. I mean, to her, this quest is fueled by a global feminist movement against femicide and intimate partner violence, which again is a crisis that is still impacting much of the world today, and something that I think was highlighted by the Me Too movement, but by no means is exclusively part of the Me Too movement. You can definitely say this goes a little beyond the Me Too movement as it deals with this incredibly tragic moment in her life. Through this memoir, Cristina really takes us on her journey to find justice for Liliana by piecing together her life through handwritten letters and school notebooks and police reports and, of course, interviews with loved ones. All of these are keys for her trying to tell us exactly what happened. And from it, we learn about Liliana's early romance with a charismatic but an incredibly possessive young man, which led to her unfortunate early death in 1990. It's during a time in her life, she's in college, and it's during a time in which she is also trying to embrace her freedom. She's trying to travel. She's trying to pursue her dreams. And so Christina's research just, it reveals the beautiful and vibrant life of her sister, who she feels lived very courageously in a world that normalized incredible violence against women. And that is what led to her not only being killed, but it's what led to the killer being able to get away with it. It's just that it was such a normalized part of society that claiming that, oh, it's just a moment of passion, and ignoring that there was just not enough being done to protect people from domestic violence, and in this case, a domestic violence that leads to someone's death. I would have to say that this book is stunningly written. I can see why it was chosen for a Pulitzer Prize. And the prose, again, are almost poetic, and I think Rivera Garza's language elevates the story, making it a powerful and a very visceral read. But it's also so much more than just a recounting of Liliana's death. I mean, it's a real gut punch because it touches on a wide range of emotions, giving us a glimpse into these two young women that are coming of age and really discovering themselves and trying to navigate their relationships. The author's narrative is heavy with the complexity of their friendship as sisters and also the friendship of the people around them, and most tragically, the relationship with her ex-boyfriend. The gut punch is obviously coming from the fact that we're dealing with domestic violence and the vulnerability of young adulthood as you're getting to know yourself. I would also say a thing that sticks out from this book is that it would definitely be considered genre bending. I mean, it is a memoir. It's also an investigative journalist, kind of, but more than that, there's a real poetic reflection there. And so I would really suggest that anyone that's interested in this book or curious about this book be prepared to understand that you're dealing with a lot of different approaches to telling a really powerful story that I think does an excellent job at touching upon a lot of powerful emotions and touching upon something that I don't think gets enough attention, and obviously the author feels the same. So who is this book for? Well, if you're looking for a book that combines literary beauty with a powerful message, or if you're drawn to stories that confront real-world issues like, of course, gender violence and injustice, then this book is, I think, a must-read. I would say that I absolutely agree with it being at least within the discussion of autobiography and memoir section of the Pulitzer Prizes. I will say I've not read all of the other books yet in this category, so I can't say if I think this one is my favorite or the one that I think is the most deserving, so I will get back to you when I finish reading the category. I will say that I can certainly see how the emotion in it is very raw, very real, and should be something that if you consider yourself open to exploring really important issues that are just tough to talk about, then I think this is a book for you. Who do I not think this book is for? Well, it's certainly not for everyone because it is telling a very sensitive story about intimate partner violence and, of course, about the femicide and just the trauma of losing a loved one. And if any of that's going to be an issue for you, then this is probably not a book you should pick up. It's not too terribly long. It was just a couple hundred pages, as I recall. And so I do think that if you're curious about everything that I've said so far about describing it, then you should definitely consider it, because I think there's a possibility that you would enjoy it or at least find things in it that you can connect to. That being said, it does not have some nice, neat, tidy ending. As I'm sure you've already guessed, the fact that her sister's death has already been solved. There's just, for one reason or another, and you will discover why as you read it, that the murderer got away. And there's not really much in this book that can change that, but hopefully it's at least an opportunity to reflect on why society is the way it is, and maybe the things that would be necessary to change that could eventually happen. Unfortunately, that would require a much larger societal movement and legislation and lots of changes that doesn't quite happen in this book, but I could see how this could be an important part of that conversation. But for a lot of people, that is not going to be something that they're interested in engaging with, and I understand that. You know, that's, many people don't want that out of the books that they're reading, and so I would certainly say it's not for those people. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this book. I did find it a very raw, emotional, and a very touching book, and it, of course, was dealing with something that was really tough to consider, but I think an important topic to think about. Please let me know what you think about this book in the comments, but don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.